Imagine being a young kid growing up in the streets of Queens, New York, surrounded by the noise of hip-hop, the grind of hustlers, and the struggles of working-class families trying to make ends meet. That was the world of Daymond John. He didn't come from privilege, and there was no roadmap handed to him. Instead, he carved his own path, thread by thread, hat by hat, until his brand, FUBU, became a global fashion empire that spoke for a generation. His story is not just about fashion. It's about grit, vision, and believing in yourself when no one else does. Daymond John was born in Brooklyn in 1969 but raised in Hollis, Queens, a neighborhood known for its strong hip-hop culture. His parents divorced when he was just 10 years old, and from that point on, his childhood changed drastically. Daymond lived with his mother, who worked tirelessly as a flight attendant to keep the family afloat. Life wasn't easy and money was always tight, but his mother's determination taught him one of the most valuable lessons early on. If you want something, you have to hustle for it. In school, Daymond was diagnosed with dyslexia, which made academics tough for him. But instead of letting that define him, he leaned into his strengths, his creativity, his people skills, and his drive. He discovered early on that he had a knack for business. At just 10 years old, he was already handing out flyers for local businesses and shoveling snow for neighbors, doing whatever he could to bring in extra money. That entrepreneurial fire was lit long before FUBU ever existed. The environment in Queens during the 1980s was alive with music, style, and culture. Hip-hop wasn't just entertainment. It was a movement, and Daymond noticed something. While the music and culture were spreading, there weren't many fashion brands that truly represented that community. High-end brands like Gucci and Tommy Hilfiger were popular, but most kids in Queens couldn't afford them. Daymond realized there was a gap, and where others saw a problem, he saw an opportunity. But before he could get there, he had to grind. After high school, Daymond worked several odd jobs. He was a waiter at Red Lobster, serving seafood to make ends meet. That job became one of the most important stepping stones in his life, not because of the paycheck, but because it taught him discipline, patience, and the value of customer service. Even while bussing tables, Daymond was paying attention, observing how businesses operated, and imagining how he could one day build something of his own. The turning point came in the early 1990s. One day, Daymond noticed that wool ski hats, popular among rappers and young people, were selling in stores for $20 a piece, but he knew those hats were cheap to make. He thought, what if I could make them myself and sell them for less? With just $40, he bought some fabric and sewed 90 hats with the help of his mother. He and a few of his friends then stood on the street corners of Queens and sold the hats for $10 each. By the end of the day, they had made $800. That moment lit a spark inside him. If he could make $800 in one day selling hats, what else was possible? That was the humble beginning of FUBU, short for us, by us. At first, it wasn't a company. It was just a dream, a hustle, a way for Daymond and his friends to create clothing that represented their culture. But as demand grew, so did Daymond's ambition. He started sewing t-shirts, jerseys, and hats, all out of his mother's house. The living room literally transformed into a factory, with sewing machines, stacks of fabric, and clothes hanging everywhere. His mother didn't just support him, she went all in. She mortgaged her house for $100,000 to help Daymond fund his dream. That level of belief gave him the push he needed to take FUBU seriously. But building a brand wasn't easy. Daymond and his friends didn't have money for marketing campaigns, so they got creative. They started giving FUBU clothes to rappers, DJs, and celebrities in the hip-hop world. Daymond understood the power of influence before influencer marketing even existed. He knew that if people saw their favorite artists wearing FUBU, it would build credibility and demand. And he was right. Soon, hip-hop stars like LL Cool J were spotted rocking FUBU gear. In fact, LL Cool J once wore a FUBU hat in a National Gap commercial, and even rapped the words "for us, by us" in his verse. That accidental promotion became a turning point, catapulting FUBU into the mainstream spotlight. Still, the journey was filled with setbacks. For years, Daymond struggled to secure funding and partnerships. Many investors turned him down, saying FUBU was too niche or that hip-hop fashion would never go mainstream. He faced rejection after rejection, but Daymond didn't give up. He knocked on doors, made phone calls, and hustled every single day. Finally, his persistence paid off when Samsung Textiles agreed to back FUBU, providing the resources needed to mass-produce the clothing line. With that deal, FUBU exploded. By the late 1990s, FUBU wasn't just a streetwear brand. It was a global phenomenon. The company generated more than $350 million in annual sales at its peak, and the brand became a symbol of pride and empowerment for the hip-hop community. From a few hats sewn in a kitchen to a worldwide empire, Daymond had built something that represented a culture and a generation. But success didn't mean the end of challenges. As the years went by, FUBU faced competition and changing trends. The hype eventually cooled, and the brand's sales declined. For many entrepreneurs, that would have been the end of the story. But for Daymond John, it was just another chapter. Instead of giving up, he pivoted. He diversified his career, becoming an author, a motivational speaker, and eventually one of the most recognized investors on the hit TV show Shark Tank. His ability to reinvent himself kept him relevant, proving that true entrepreneurs are not defined by one success or one failure, but by their adaptability. Daymond's leadership philosophy has always been rooted in hustle, creativity, and persistence. He often talks about the power of starting small, of using what you have, and of never waiting for the perfect moment. He believed that you don't need millions of dollars to chase a dream. You need determination, resourcefulness, and the courage to start. That's the same mindset he brought from sewing hats in his living room to building an empire. His journey wasn't just about building a brand, it was about breaking barriers. As a young black entrepreneur in the 1990s, Daymond faced stereotypes, skepticism, and discrimination. But instead of letting that hold him back, he used it as fuel. He built FUBU not just as a clothing line but as a statement, a declaration that hip-hop culture had value, that it deserved respect, and that it could compete on the global stage. Today, Daymond John is more than just the founder of FUBU. He is a self-made multimillionaire, a best-selling author, a motivational speaker, and an investor who helps other entrepreneurs chase their dreams. But he never forgot where he came from. He often shares the story of growing up with limited means, of sewing hats with his mother, of standing on street corners in Queens just trying to make a sale. Those roots keep him grounded and make his success even more inspiring. His story teaches us powerful lessons. First, that your circumstances don't define you. Daymond didn't come from money, connections, or privilege. He came from hustle, creativity, and determination. Second, that rejection is part of the journey. If Daymond had stopped after being turned down by investors, FUBU would never have existed. And third, that vision is everything. He saw an opportunity where others saw nothing, and he pursued it with relentless belief. So, what can we learn from Daymond John? Your dream doesn't have to start big. It can start with a $40 fabric investment, a kitchen sewing machine, or an idea that no one else believes in. What matters is that you believe in it, that you put in the work, and that you never stop pushing forward. Daymond's journey from sewing hats in his mother's house to building the FUBU fashion empire is proof that success is not about where you start. It's about where you're willing to go. His story challenges us to stop making excuses, to embrace the hustle, and to chase our dreams with everything we have. And so I'll leave you with this. What's your FUBU? What's the idea sitting in your heart that the world is waiting for? Don't let fear, doubt, or rejection stop you. Remember Daymond John, the poor kid from Queens who built an empire because if he could do it, so can you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What dream are you working on right now? Share it in the comments below. And if this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more motivational stories like this. Always keep in mind, success doesn't start with money or luck. It starts with hustle, belief, and the courage to take the first step.